The devastating attack. The stars bore silent witness to humanity's darkest hour. Proxima Centauri, once a beacon of hope and human achievement on the fringes of explored space, now lay in ruins. The Krell Empire, a race of highly advanced cephalopod-like aliens, had struck without warning or mercy. Their attack was swift, brutal, and incomprehensible in its cruelty. Commander Sarah Chen stood before the holographic display in Earth Central Command, her fists clenched at her sides. The images flickering before her eyes told a story too horrific to comprehend. Proxima Centauri's cities, once gleaming metropolises, were now nothing more than smoldering craters. But it was the death toll that truly chilled her to the core. 800,000 children, Admiral Marcus Reeves said, his voice barely above a whisper. They specifically targeted schools, daycares, pediatric hospitals. This wasn't just an attack. It was genocide. Sarah closed her eyes, fighting back tears as she thought of her brother and his young daughter who had called Proxima Centauri home. They were among the countless lost. The room fell into a heavy silence, broken only by the soft beeping of consoles and the occasional sharp intake of breath as the gathered military and political leaders grappled with the magnitude of the atrocity. President Amelia Okonkwo, her face ashen, finally spoke. "We need to understand why. Has there been any communication from the Krell? Any demands or declarations?" A young intelligence officer stepped forward, tablet in hand. "Nothing direct, Madam President, but we've intercepted some of their internal communications. It seems they view us as a potential threat to their dominion. The attack on Proxima Centauri was meant to, in their words, cull the human infestation before it spreads." Sarah felt a surge of rage course through her body. Infestation. They murdered children to send a message. Admiral Reeves placed a calming hand on her shoulder, but his own eyes blazed with a cold fury. The Krell Empire has been expanding unchecked for centuries. We've had reports from other species, refugees fleeing their advance. They don't conquer. They exterminate. President Okonkwo leaned forward, her hands clasped tightly on the table before her. "Options. I need options. We can't let this stand. But we're talking about an empire that spans half the galaxy. We've barely taken our first steps into interstellar space." The room erupted into a cacophony of voices. Some argued for immediate retaliation, others for seeking allies among other spacefaring races. A few even suggested capitulation, hoping to negotiate some form of coexistence. Sarah listened to it all, her mind racing. She thought of her brother, of her niece who would never see her 6th birthday. She thought of the millions of families torn apart, of the future that had been stolen from an entire generation. And in that moment, she knew that humanity could not afford to be timid. "We fight," she said, her voice cutting through the din. All eyes turned to her. "We fight with everything we have, not just for vengeance, but for survival. The Krell have made it clear there's no coexistence with them. It's us or them." Admiral Reeves nodded slowly, a grim smile forming on his weathered face. "Commander Chen is right, but we can't fight them conventionally. We need to be smarter, more adaptable. We need to hit them in ways they won't expect." He stepped to the central holo display, bringing up a galactic map. "I propose Operation Nemesis, a multi-pronged approach combining guerrilla tactics, technological innovation, and diplomatic outreach to other species who suffered under Krell oppression." As Reeves outlined his plan, Sarah felt a glimmer of hope kindle in her chest. It was audacious, perhaps even desperate, but it played to humanity's strengths: adaptability, ingenuity, and an indomitable will to survive against all odds. President Okonkwo listened intently, her expression grave but resolute. When Reeves finished, she stood, looking each person in the room in the eye. "What we're contemplating, it's not just a war. It's a fight for the very survival of our species. If we commit to this, there's no turning back. We will likely suffer losses that will dwarf even what happened on Proxima Centauri." She paused, taking a deep breath. But we cannot allow such an atrocity to go unanswered. We cannot cower in fear while a hostile power decides whether our children have the right to exist. If we don't stand now, we may never get another chance. The president's gaze fell on Sarah. Commander Chen, you've suffered a personal loss in this attack. I won't order you to be part of this operation, but if you're willing, I believe your insight and your motivation could be invaluable. Sarah straightened, feeling the weight of history settling on her shoulders. Madam President, Admiral, I'm not just willing. I volunteer to lead the first strike team. The Krell need to learn that when you wound humanity, when you spill the blood of our innocent, you've sealed your own fate. A murmur of agreement rippled through the room. Admiral Reeves nodded approvingly. Then it's settled. We'll begin preparations immediately. The Krell think they've broken our spirit, that we'll fade quietly into the void. They're about to learn how gravely mistaken they are. As the meeting adjourned and leaders rushed to their respective tasks, Sarah remained before the holographic display. She stared at the image of Proxima Centauri, now nothing more than a scared and lifeless rock. I promise you, she whispered to the ghosts of the fallen, your deaths will not be in vain. We will avenge you, and we will ensure that no other world suffers your fate. With a final determined nod, Sarah turned and strode from the room. The die was cast. Humanity would not go gently into the night. They would rage against the dying of the light, and the galaxy would never be the same. The war for survival had begun, and humanity did not intend to go quietly into oblivion. The Krell had awakened a sleeping giant, and now the entire galaxy would bear witness to humanity's indomitable spirit. Humanity's response. The next 6 months saw humanity transform itself with a speed and determination that would have seemed impossible before the Proxima Centauri massacre. Every aspect of society was mobilized towards a single goal: survival against an implacable foe. Commander Sarah Chen found herself at the heart of this whirlwind of activity. Operation Nemesis had moved from concept to reality with breathtaking speed, and she now stood before a group of the most elite soldiers Earth had to offer. You've all seen the briefings, Sarah began, her voice carrying across the cavernous training facility. The Krell are technologically advanced, numerically superior, and utterly ruthless. By all conventional metrics, this war is unwinnable. A ripple of tension passed through the assembled troops. Sarah allowed herself a grim smile. Fortunately, humanity has never much cared for conventional metrics. We're not here to fight a conventional war. We're here to rewrite the rules of engagement. She gestured, and a holographic display sprang to life behind her, showing schematics of advanced weaponry and stealth systems. Thanks to round-the-clock efforts from our best scientific minds, we've made breakthroughs that would have taken decades under normal circumstances. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the lead scientist of Project Prometheus, stepped forward. Her eyes were sunken from months of sleepless nights, but they burned with an intense fire. We've reverse-engineered several key components of Krell technology from debris recovered from Proxima Centauri. More importantly, we've improved upon them. She manipulated the holographic display, zooming in on what looked like a standard assault rifle. This is the XM-12 Phantom. It incorporates a miniaturized cloaking field, allowing for near-perfect optical and thermal camouflage. Its ammunition is designed to bypass Krell energy shields, delivering a payload that disrupts their unique biology. Sarah watched as the soldiers leaned forward, their eyes gleaming with a mixture of awe and anticipation. She knew that look well. It was the same one she saw in the mirror every morning. The desire for payback tempered by the weight of humanity's survival resting on their shoulders. You'll be spending the next month training with these new systems, Sarah continued. You'll eat, sleep, and breathe this technology until it becomes an extension of your own bodies. Because when we strike, we'll have one shot at this. We have to make it count. As the troops dispersed to begin their training, Admiral Reeves approached Sarah. Impressive speech, he said quietly. How are you holding up? Sarah's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. I'm focused on the mission, sir. Personal feelings don't enter into it. Reeves' weathered face softened slightly. They do, Sarah. That's what makes you human. It's what separates us from the Krell. Just don't let it consume you. Before Sarah could respond, an aide rushed up, his face flushed with excitement. Commander, Admiral, we've got something. The deep space listening posts have picked up Krell communications. We've located one of their forward operating bases just at the edge of what used to be the Proxima Centauri system. Sarah and Reeves exchanged a look. This was the opportunity they'd been waiting for. Prep the team, Reeves ordered. We move in 48 hours. The next 2 days were a blur of final preparations and briefings. Sarah stood in the hangar bay of the UES Nemesis, Earth's most advanced stealth frigate, watching as her strike team made final equipment checks. "This is it, people," she said, her voice calm despite the adrenaline surging through her veins. "Operation Nemesis begins now. We go in fast, we hit hard, and we show these bastards that humanity is not to be trifled with." The journey to the Krell base was tense, filled with an electric silence. As they approached, Sarah marveled at the alienness of the Krell construction. The base was a sprawling, organic-looking structure that seemed to pulse with an inner light. Cloaking systems engaged, the ship's AI announced. "We are undetected." Sarah nodded to her team. "Remember your training. Stick to the shadows, use your phantoms, and for God's sake, watch each other's backs. The future of our species rides on this mission. Success." They deployed from the Nemesis with practiced precision, their cloaking fields rendering them nearly invisible against the backdrop of space. Sarah led the way, her heart pounding as they breached the outer defenses of the Krell base. Inside, the architecture was even stranger, a disorienting mix of biological and technological elements that seemed to defy human understanding. But Sarah and her team had trained for this. They moved like ghosts through the alien corridors, planting charges at key structural points and gathering vital intelligence. It wasn't until they reached the central command node that things went sideways. A Krell warrior, larger and more heavily armored than the others they'd encountered, seemed to sense their presence despite their cloaking fields. "Contact!" Sarah shouted as the massive alien bore down on them, its tentacles writhing in what might have been anticipation or rage. The air filled with the sound of phantom rifles discharging. The Krell's shields flared and failed under the assault, but not before it managed to trigger an alarm. Change of plans, Sarah barked into her comm. "Forget stealth. We bring this whole damn place down now." What followed was a chaotic running battle through the twisting corridors of the Krell base. Sarah's team fought with a ferocity born of righteous anger and desperation, their new weapons proving their worth as Krell warriors fell before them. As they fought their way back to the extraction point, Sarah found herself face to face with another of the larger Krell, this one adorned with elaborate markings that suggested high rank. For a moment, they locked eyes, or what passed for eyes on the alien's cephalopod-like face. In that instant, Sarah saw something she hadn't expected. Fear. The Krell, for all their technological might and cold cruelty, had never faced an enemy like humanity before. An enemy that, when pushed to the brink, pushed back with unmatched ferocity and ingenuity. With a primal yell, Sarah emptied her phantom's clip into the Krell commander, watching with grim satisfaction as it crumpled to the ground. "That's for Proxima Centauri," she snarled. Moments later, they were back aboard the Nemesis, watching through the viewscreen as the Krell base erupted in a series of massive explosions. As the structure broke apart, spilling its contents into the cold void of space, Sarah felt a complex mix of emotions: satisfaction, grief, and a steely resolve. Admiral Reeves' voice came over the comm, tight with barely contained excitement. "Nemesis, report. Did we succeed?" Sarah took a deep breath, looking at her battered but triumphant team. "Sir, Operation Nemesis is a go. We've struck the first blow, and we've sent the Krell a message they won't soon forget." As the Nemesis sped back towards Earth, Sarah allowed herself a small, fierce smile. This was just the beginning. The Krell had awakened a sleeping giant, And now the entire galaxy would bear witness to humanity's indomitable spirit. The war for survival had begun, and humanity did not intend to go quietly into the night. The Krell counterattack. The successful strike against the Krell forward base sent shockwaves through the galaxy. For the first time in centuries, the seemingly invincible empire had tasted defeat. But if humanity thought this would cow their enemy into submission, they were gravely mistaken. Deep within the heart of Krell-controlled space, Supreme Commander Zexkra stood before the Imperial War Council. His chitinous exoskeleton gleamed under the harsh lights of the Krell throne world, his multiple eyes sweeping across the assembled generals, taking in their agitated movements and the rapid undulation of their tentacles. The humans, Zexkra began, his translator rendering his clicks and whistles into a cold, synthetic voice, have proven to be more resilient than anticipated. Our attack on their colony was meant to exterminate a nuisance. Instead, we have roused a hive of unexpectedly clever vermin. He called up a holographic display of the destroyed forward base. Their tactics were unorthodox. Their technology, while primitive, has been adapted in ways we did not foresee. This will not stand. The War Council erupted into a cacophony of alien sounds, each general offering their own strategy for crushing the human resistance. Zexkra let them argue for a moment before raising the clawed appendage for silence. "We will not make the mistake of underestimating these creatures again," he declared. "I am hereby ordering a full-scale assault on all known human colonies. We will crush their will to resist and then systematically eradicate their species from the galaxy." As the Krell war machine rumbled to life, humanity braced for the coming storm. The attack, when it came, was even more devastating than they had feared. On Earth, Commander Sarah Chen stood in Central Command, watching with growing horror as reports flooded in from across human space. The Krell had struck a dozen colonies simultaneously, their forces seemingly endless. "Arcadia is under heavy bombardment," an officer reported, his voice strained. "New Eden has gone dark. We've lost contact with Elysium Station." Admiral Reeves, his face haggard from sleepless nights, turned to Sarah. "They're trying to replicate what they did on Proxima Centauri. Hit us so hard and so fast that we have no chance to recover." Sarah nodded grimly. "But this time, we're not caught completely off guard. Our new defense systems are online. We've evacuated as many civilians as we could to hardened shelters. We can weather this storm." Even as she spoke, another officer called out, "Sir, we're picking up a massive Krell fleet on approach to the Arcturus system. They'll be in range of our outer colonies there within hours." Sarah and Reeves exchanged a look. They both knew what this meant. Arcturus was one of humanity's most important strongholds, a linchpin in their defensive strategy. If it fell, the path to Earth itself would be wide open. "Prep the fleet," Reeves ordered. "We make our stand at Arcturus. Commander Chen, I want you on the flagship. Your experience fighting the Krell up close will be invaluable." As they raced towards Arcturus aboard the UES Thermopylae, humanity's most advanced battleship, Sarah briefed the fleet commanders on what to expect. "The Krell rely heavily on swarm tactics," she explained. "They'll try to overwhelm our defenses through sheer numbers, but their individual ships are less maneuverable than ours. Use that to your advantage." The battle that unfolded in the Arcturus system would later be remembered as one of the most pivotal engagements in human history. The sky above Arcturus Prime lit up with the fires of 1,000 explosions as human and Krell ships clashed in a deadly dance. Sarah found herself in the thick of the fighting, coordinating strike teams and calling out Krell formations. The innovations born from Operation Nemesis were proving their worth. Human ships, though outnumbered, were holding their own against the alien swarms. But the tide of battle ebbed and flowed. For every Krell ship they destroyed, 2 more seemed to take its place. Sarah watched with a mix of pride and anguish as human captains pulled off daring maneuvers, some sacrificing themselves to take out key enemy vessels. "We can't keep this up forever," Reeves' voice crackled over the comm. "We need to find a way to turn the tide decisively." Sarah's mind raced, analyzing the Krell attack patterns. There was something familiar about their formations, something she had seen in the data recovered from the forward base. Suddenly, it clicked. "Admiral," she called out, "I think I've identified their command ship. It's that large vessel at the center of their formation. If we can take it out, we might be able to throw their entire force into disarray." Reeves didn't hesitate. "Do it. Take whatever resources you need." What followed was a daring assault that would become legendary in the annals of human military history. Sarah led a small team of elite pilots in a series of micro-jumps, using the chaos of the battle to mask their approach. They weaved through the Krell formation, their ship's new cloaking technology keeping them hidden until the last possible moment. As they closed in on the massive Krell command ship, Sarah felt a surge of fierce determination. This was for Proxima Centauri, for all the human lives lost, for the future of their species. "All ships, fire everything you've got," she ordered. The space around the Krell command ship erupted in a firestorm of human weaponry. Missiles designed to penetrate Krell shields found their mark. Energy weapons overloaded alien systems. For a moment, it seemed as if space itself was tearing apart around the massive vessel. When the chaos cleared, the Krell command ship was a floating wreck, venting atmosphere and debris. Almost immediately, the cohesion of the alien fleet began to falter. "Press the advantage." Reeves roared over the fleet-wide channel. "Don't let up." The battle raged for hours more, but the destruction of their command ship had thrown the Krell into disarray. Slowly but surely, humanity began to push them back. As the last of the alien ships fled the system, a ragged cheer went up across the human fleet. They had done it. Against all odds, they had stood against the full might of the Krell Empire and emerged victorious. But Sarah felt no elation as she stood on the bridge of the Thermopylae, watching the debris of friend and foe alike drift through space. This was just one battle, and the war was far from over. The Krell would be back, and they would be even more determined to wipe humanity from the face of the galaxy. As if reading her thoughts, Admiral Reeves approached, placing a hand on her shoulder. "We've bought ourselves some time," he said quietly. "But you're right. This isn't over. Not by a long shot." Sarah nodded, her eyes fixed on the stars beyond the viewscreen. The battle for Arcturus was won, but the war for humanity's survival had only just begun, and she knew that the next clash would be even more desperate, even more brutal. But as she looked around at the determined faces of her fellow soldiers, she felt a glimmer of hope. Humanity had proven its worth today. They had shown the galaxy that they would not go quietly into the night, and no matter what horrors the Krell might unleash upon them. Sarah knew one thing with absolute certainty. Humanity would face it together, with all the ingenuity, courage, and determination they could muster. The Krell had awakened a sleeping giant, and now they would face the consequences of their actions. The next phase of the war was about to begin, and Sarah Chen was ready to lead humanity into the fight of their lives. Aftermath and preparation. The victory at Arcturus had come at a steep cost. As the dust settled and the adrenaline of battle faded, the true toll of the conflict became apparent. Thousands of human lives had been lost, dozens of ships destroyed, and the system's infrastructure lay in ruins. Yet, amidst the debris and sorrow, a newfound sense of hope blossomed across human space. They had stood against the might of the Krell Empire and emerged victorious. Commander Sarah Chen stood before a wall of holoscreens in Earth's Central Command, her eyes scanning the incoming reports from across human territory. The Battle of Arcturus had bought them time, but the war was far from over. "Status report," Admiral Reeves called out as he entered the room, his voice carrying the weight of command and exhaustion in equal measure. Sarah turned to face him, her expression grim but determined. "The Krell have withdrawn to regroup, sir. Our long-range sensors show their fleets massing at the edge of the Orion Arm. Intelligence suggests they're preparing for another major offensive." Reeves nodded, his weathered face creased with concern. "And our losses?" "Significant," Sarah replied, calling up a holographic display of the battle's aftermath. We lost 40% of our fleet at Arcturus. Civilian casualties across our outer colonies are in the millions. But, she paused, allowing a small smile to cross her face. We've proven that the Krell aren't invincible. Morale across human space is at an all-time high. People believe we can win this war. Good, Reeves said, his eyes scanning the data. We'll need that belief for what's coming next. What's the status of Project Phoenix? Sarah's eyes lit up at the mention of humanity's most ambitious undertaking since the start of the war. Dr. Tanaka reports that they're ahead of schedule. The first prototypes should be ready for testing within the week. As if on cue, the doors to the command center slid open, and Dr. Yuki Tanaka strode in, her lab coat billowing behind her. "Commander, Admiral," she greeted them, her voice tinged with excitement. "I think you'll want to see this." She tapped a few commands into her datapad, and the central holo-display changed to show a sleek, almost organic-looking spacecraft. "Gentlemen, I present to you the XSV-1 Firebird, the first of our Phoenix-class vessels." Sarah and Reeves leaned in, their eyes wide with wonder. The ship before them looked nothing like traditional human designs. It was smooth, tall seemingly without seams, with strange protrusions that pulsed with an inner light. "Is that?" Sarah began, her voice trailing off in disbelief. Dr. Tanaka nodded, a proud smile on her face. "Yes, Commander. We've successfully integrated Krell biotechnology with our own systems. The Firebird isn't just a ship. It's a living, thinking entity capable of adapting to battlefield conditions in real time." Reeves let out a low whistle. "Incredible. But is it safe? Can we control it?" "Absolutely," Tanaka assured him. "We've developed a neural interface that allows the pilot to become one with the ship. The human mind provides the creativity and unpredictability that the Krell can't match, while the ship's organic systems provide unparalleled speed and adaptability." Sarah's mind raced with the possibilities. This could change everything. "How soon can we begin mass production?" Dr. Tanaka's smile faltered slightly. "That's the catch. The biointegration process is incredibly complex. We can't simply build these ships in a traditional shipyard. They need to be grown." "Grown?" Reeves asked, his brow furrowing. "Yes," Tanaka confirmed. "We've set up specialized facilities on Europa. The process takes time, but once we perfect it, we'll be able to produce Firebirds faster than any conventional ship." Sarah nodded, her tactical mind already formulating strategies. "We'll need to protect those facilities at all costs. If the Krell get wind of this project—" "They won't," Reeves said firmly. "We'll divert additional resources to Europa's defense. In the meantime, we need to buy more time. Commander Chen, I want you to oversee our guerrilla operations. Keep the Krell off balance. Make them look over their shoulders at every turn." Sarah straightened, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. "Yes, sir. I have some ideas about that. We've been analyzing the data from Arcturus, and I think we've identified some weaknesses in Krell tactics we can exploit." As Sarah outlined her plans, the mood in the command center shifted. The desperation of the early days of the war was replaced by a steely determination. They had a fighting chance now, a path to victory, no matter how narrow. Over the next few months, humanity threw itself into preparation for the next phase of the war. The shipyards of Mars worked around the clock, repairing damaged vessels and constructing new ones. On Earth, recruitment centers were flooded with volunteers, men and women ready to take the fight to the Krell. Sarah found herself at the heart of this whirlwind of activity. When she wasn't planning hit-and-run attacks on Krell supply lines, she was training the next generation of pilots for the Firebird program. The neural interface was unlike anything she had ever experienced. The first time she linked with a Firebird prototype, she felt as if she had sprouted wings, her consciousness expanding to fill every part of the living ship. As the days turned to weeks, and weeks to months, the tension across human space grew. Everyone knew the Krell would return, and when they did, it would be with a vengeance. But this time, humanity would be ready. It was during a rare moment of quiet that Sarah found herself standing before the memorial wall in Central Command. Thousands of names scrolled by, a testament to the cost of their survival. Her brother and niece were among them, their loss still a raw wound in her heart. "We won't let their sacrifices be in vain," a voice said from behind her. Sarah turned to see President Okonkwo approaching, her face lined with the stress of leadership, but her eyes burning with resolve. "No, we won't," Sarah agreed. "When the Krell return, we'll show them the true strength of humanity." As if in response to her words, alarms began to blare throughout the command center. Sarah and the President rushed to the main display, where a grim-faced Admiral Reeves was already assessing the situation. "Multiple Krell fleets detected entering the Orion Arm," he reported, his voice tense. "It's bigger than anything we've seen before. They're not just sending an army this time. They're coming to exterminate us, once and for all." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine, but it was quickly replaced by a fierce determination. This was the moment they had been preparing for. This was humanity's last stand. "Then let's give them a welcome they'll never forget," she said, her voice ringing with confidence. "It's time to show the galaxy what happens when you back humanity into a corner." As the command center erupted into a flurry of activity, Sarah strode towards the hangar where her Firebird waited. The final battle for humanity's survival was about to begin, and she intended to be at the forefront. The Krell thought they were coming to end this war. Instead, they were about to learn the true meaning of human resilience. The stars themselves would bear witness to the indomitable spirit of a species fighting not just for survival, but for their right to exist in a hostile universe. The stage was set. The pieces were in place. And as Sarah linked with her Firebird, feeling the living ship become an extension of her will, she knew one thing with absolute certainty. Whatever the outcome, this would be a battle that the galaxy would remember for millennia to come. The final stand. The void of space erupted into a kaleidoscope of destruction as the combined fleets of humanity clashed with the seemingly endless armada of the Krell Empire. The battle that would decide the fate of Earth and all her colonies had begun. Commander Sarah Chen, melded with her Firebird-class ship, the Prometheus, led the vanguard of humanity's defense. The neural link allowed her to feel every movement, every weapon discharge as if it were an extension of her own body. Around her, dozens of other Firebirds danced through the chaos, their organic hulls shifting and adapting to the onslaught of Krell weaponry. "All units, engage at will," Sarah's voice echoed across the comms. "Remember your training. Use the Krell's numbers against them. We are the final line of defense for Earth. We will not fall." The space around Earth's orbit became a graveyard of ships, both human and Krell. For every human vessel destroyed, the Firebirds ensured that multiple Krell ships joined them in oblivion. But the aliens' numbers seemed endless, wave after wave pressing forward, determined to reach the blue jewel of humanity's homeworld. Aboard the UES Thermopylae, Admiral Reeves coordinated the broader strategy. "Chen, we're detecting a surge in Krell activity in Sector 7. They're trying to punch through our lines." Sarah's mind raced, processing the tactical data flowing through her neural link. "I see it, Admiral." Redirecting Firebird Squadrons Omega and Epsilon to reinforce. As she led her team to plug the gap, Sarah caught sight of a massive Krell dreadnought pushing through the chaos. Its organic hull bristled with weapons, each capable of laying waste to an entire city. This had to be the Krell flagship. "All units, priority target identified," Sarah called out. "Concentrate fire on that dreadnought. If we can take out their command and control, we might just turn this battle around." The response was immediate. Human ships of all sizes converged on the Krell behemoth, unleashing a barrage of missiles, energy weapons, and newly developed quantum disruptors. The dreadnought's shields flared under the assault, holding for now, but noticeably weakening. Suddenly, Sarah's sensors screamed a warning. A swarm of Krell fighters had broken through the human lines, making a beeline for Earth's atmosphere. If even one of those ships reached the surface, the casualties would be catastrophic. "This is Commander Chen," Sarah broadcast on all frequencies. "I'm pursuing the Krell breakthrough. I need volunteers to come with me. We stop them here, or Earth falls." A chorus of affirmatives flooded the comms as a dozen Firebirds peeled away from the main battle to join her. Together, they dove through the maelstrom of combat, pushing their ships to the limit as they raced to intercept the Krell fighters. The pursuit was unlike anything Sarah had ever experienced. The Firebirds' organic nature allowed them to pull maneuvers that would have torn apart conventional ships. They weaved through debris fields, used the gravity wells of destroyed vessels to slingshot themselves forward, all while exchanging fire with the Krell. As they entered Earth's upper atmosphere, the true scale of what was at stake hit Sarah. Below them, the lights of cities sprawled across continents, billions of lives hanging in the balance. With renewed determination, she pushed the Prometheus harder. "All units, fire at will," Sarah ordered. "Don't let a single Krell ship touch the ground." What followed was a dogfight that would be remembered in human history for centuries to come. Firebirds and Krell fighters danced a deadly ballet through Earth's skies, their weapons lighting up the night like an otherworldly fireworks display. One by one, the Krell fighters fell, their burning husks streaking across the atmosphere like falling stars. But the victory came at a cost. Sarah watched as Firebirds, piloted by men and women she had trained herself, sacrificed everything to ensure Earth's safety. As the last Krell fighter exploded in a brilliant flash, Sarah allowed herself a moment of silent tribute to the fallen. But the battle was far from over. Above them, in the inky blackness of space, the main Krell fleet still pressed its attack. "This is Chen," Sarah calmed as she led the remaining Firebirds back into orbit. "Earth's atmosphere is secure," returning to provide support to the main fleet. As they rejoined the primary battle, Sarah's heart soared. Despite being outnumbered and outgunned, humanity's forces were holding their ground. The Firebirds' unprecedented maneuverability and adaptability had thrown the Krell's usual tactics into disarray. But the tide truly turned when Sarah saw the massive Krell dreadnought, its hull now scared and venting atmosphere, listing to one side. The combined firepower of the human fleet had finally broken through its defenses. "All units, this is our chance," Sarah called out. "Hit that dreadnought with everything we've got. Bring it down." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Every human ship that could bring its weapons to bear opened fire. Missiles streaked across space, energy beams lanced out, and the few remaining nukes in humanity's arsenal were launched without hesitation. The Krell dreadnought, for all its size and power, couldn't withstand the onslaught. Explosions blossomed across its hull, chain reactions tearing it apart from the inside. With a final, cataclysmic detonation, the pride of the Krell fleet split in two, its broken halves drifting apart in the void. A cheer went up across all human frequencies, a roar of triumph that seemed to shake the very stars. Without their flagship, the remaining Krell ships fell into disarray. Some continued to fight, but many turned tail and fled, jumping to faster-than-light speeds to escape the fury of a humanity pushed to its limits. As the last of the Krell ships disappeared from sensors, an eerie quiet fell over the battlefield. Sarah, still linked with the Prometheus, felt every ache, every wound her ship had sustained. But more than that, she felt an overwhelming sense of relief and disbelief. They had done it. Against all odds, humanity had stood against the full might of the Krell Empire and emerged victorious. Admiral Reeves' voice, thick with emotion, came over the comms. "To all ships, all ground forces, and every human being listening. This is Admiral Reeves. The Krell fleet is in full retreat. Earth is safe. We've won." The cheers that erupted drowned out everything else. Sarah found herself laughing and crying at the same time. The emotions of the past months, the losses, the fears, the desperate hopes, all pouring out at once. As the Prometheus drifted back towards Earth, Sarah looked out at the battered but unbroken planet below. They had lost so much, sacrificed so many, but they had survived. More than that, they had proven to the galaxy that humanity was a force to be reckoned with. The Krell had come to exterminate what they saw as vermin, a nuisance to be wiped out. Instead, they had awakened a sleeping giant, a species whose potential they had gravely underestimated. And now, as the dust of battle settled, and the long process of rebuilding began, Sarah knew that this was just the beginning. Humanity had taken its first steps onto the galactic stage, baptized in fire and blood. The road ahead would be long and fraught with challenges, but they would face it together, stronger for what they had endured. As the first rays of sunlight peeked over Earth's horizon, painting the devastation of battle in hues of gold and pink, Sarah Chen allowed herself a smile. The darkest night had passed, and a new dawn was breaking for humanity. Whatever the future held, they would meet it head-on, with the same courage, ingenuity, and indomitable spirit that had seen them through their greatest trial. The Krell had meant to write humanity's epitaph. Instead, they had penned the opening chapter of humanity's ascension to the stars.